Hello and welcome back to this episode of the Law of Relevancy podcast. I'm Cord Zoen, your host. I'm the CEO of Bake More Pies, a full-service advertising and marketing agency located here in Tampa, Florida. On this show, we talk about things that are happening right now, things that communications, marketing, and entrepreneurial folks need to hear and learn. Today, we're joined by Stephanie Lee. Stephanie is a longtime friend of mine who has been involved in entrepreneurial ventures as well as corporate ventures her entire career. Stephanie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
I love having you on the show. So, Stephanie, you've been involved in many different levels, in corporate and enterprise down to startups. What has that been like in your career?
Well, it's been an interesting ride. I've learned a lot. And just for a little background on how I got into insurance, where I've ended up with golden handcuffs, it's really a great industry. It wasn't planned. I, right after college, got a role with one of the largest insurers in the world, AIG, and I was running an agency for them in Germany. It was a really challenging time in the market. This was back in 1995.
Okay.
And there were a lot of changes going on in the European Union and changes with the insurance industry that were creating, I guess what you would call a downsizing of the AIG agency force. And my agency was growing. And so AIG came to me and asked if I would create a marketing plan, if I could help them and use that marketing plan to educate all of their other agency owners. So at the next conference we had in Frankfurt, I'd written some training material. I was really young. We won't get into my age now, but it was a long time ago. And some of them didn't really want to hear what I had to say. I think there was a bit of frustration. Why is this young girl, American girl, getting on stage in Frankfurt at our conference to teach us about marketing? And the core of that teaching is something that I've held until today, and that I think is a core value that everybody needs in marketing, which is putting the customer first. And so just having a customer-centric platform, whether you're an agency in person or you're an online store, making sure that you're constantly focused on serving. And when you serve others, I just think people can't resist the authenticity of knowing that they're being helped. And it's not about yourself. It's not about necessarily profitability and growth all the time. It's not about greed. It's really about how can you help the most people to get what they need when they come in for an insurance policy. That's
really good advice. Can you think of like a story or two where like you were able to apply that advice and it really come back in a good way?
Oh my gosh. So, there's a lot of stories. There have been times when you're selling a policy, giving advice, and maybe the consumer doesn't want to buy a certain coverage, but it's what's best for them. And so how I've trained my whole team over years, different teams, is that you treat the customer like they're a family member that you really love. Mm-hmm. And so everybody gets kind of red carpet service. So we had a particular customer when we were in Germany early on that didn't want to buy full coverage for his brand new Volvo that he'd just gone to the dealership and picked up. He thought that he was we were trying to upsell him, for example.
Right.
And so he was taking a trip to Greece. Pretty easy to travel around Europe via car.
Just go down.
Yeah, it's easy.
Go down from Germany and you'll hit Greece, right?
That's right. So he was taking a trip, and one of my salespeople called me out and said he didn't want to buy this type of coverage. He just wanted comprehensive. Mm-hmm. Actually, he didn't even want to buy comp. And so I went out and spoke to him, advised him that he really needed to buy full coverage on this car. It was a brand new car, and explained to him, of course, he's traveling to another country, that he could get into some tight situations there. It might not be a great idea to financially expose himself. This was in the end of the 90s. It's the end of the 90s, and he just purchased a $30,000 vehicle.
And Europe is famous for like inner city roads that were made for carriages.
Yes, they're very small streets, brick paved many times. Additionally, this was a time where Americans traveling were not necessarily treated in the best way in some other countries.
And this guy was an American.
He was an
Germany.
American military member.
Got it.
And in order not to stand out, if you were an American military member, you had these tags that kind of pointed you out.
Oh.
They weren't the long rectangular flags that you see on European vehicles.
Gotcha.
They looked more like an American license plate. So we knew that he would be identified as an American driving around, and thought that he could be a target, and just wanted him to be careful. So what I said to him was, I tell you what, why don't you buy the full coverage? Your trip is in a month. And in 3 months, if you see no use for it, you can come back in and we'll strip the policy.
That's good advice.
Yeah. And so
Would that have negatively impacted you at all as an agent?
Yes, because of the loss ratio, right? If he had an incident, then you're going to pay out on it.
Got it. I was just thinking of like downsizing the policy.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, of course. I mean, I'd have to give commission back.
So you were like incentivized to not do that.
That's correct.
But you did something else. You were like, hey, this is the absolute best thing for you. Got it.
So trying to get him to understand that he may need it. So he went on his trip. You know, he bought the right coverage, went on the trip, agreed a little reluctantly, maybe feeling that he's, getting a used car deal pitch, not too excited about that.
Sure.
But he did it and said, okay, I'll come back in a couple of months. And had a collision in Greece. It was a total loss. And came back in super excited that he'd listened to us.
Yeah.
My loss ratio took a hit, but that wasn't happening every day. But he was a great testimonial for us. He brought so much business in, and he was in one of my best tiers for loss ratios, right? So people over 40 generally don't have accidents.
Sure.
But it was a hit and run. He didn't actually have the accident. And so he lost his new vehicle, and we paid it out in full. So that was a really good experience for him. It was a good lesson for my team to see that when you tell the truth to your customer and advise them in a way that you would advise your best friend, you usually win. It's a win-win.
Right, because he was actually asking you not to do that.
That's
the customer was, so the customer always wins. Is that is that your theory, or the customer's always right? Like, what was your theory?
Yeah,
again?
So the customer isn't always right.
Right.
I've had to fire customers also, but the customer needs to be told the truth and given as much education as possible to make a good decision, and you're supposed to be guiding them towards that decision. And it shouldn't be based on your commission. It shouldn't be based on the premium. It should be based on the actual exposure that customer has. My question to him that day was, do you have a spare $30,000 sitting around in case something should happen that you'd just like to give up for this car, which he did not.
No, not a lot of us do.
Yeah.
So that's also one example of where you've been able to give somebody good advice. And I guess most of us, our experience with AIG is really more in like really, really top tier, right? I mean, I guess, do they have a lot of customer facing agents? I mean, nowadays they really don't, do they?
Not in the U.S. so much, no.
Got it. So in Europe they were more like that way. And so now it seems like your whole career is defined by that theory of being able to, like, doing your best to take care of the customer, and it's led you from one insurance venture to another.
That's right. And it's led me to start my own business because he with the gold makes the rules. And so if you don't own the company and you don't believe in the culture and the rules, it's a tough place to stay.
Yeah.
And so that's been really a constant battle for me, and not that I've worked for bad people, it's just that in corporate America, there are certain goals, and it's not ordinary for someone to sit down and say, this is a customer-centric environment. They might say it, but they don't live it.
Right.
And so that was a real challenge for me from a moral standpoint, and I just decided that I was going to have to change the game by changing the field. If you own the field, then you get to make the rules.
And I think that's what we've always gotten along very well.
Yes.
Is I love to do the same thing. Like I've always really been very motivated to innovate, right? And it's easy to see if whatever you're doing isn't having a positive impact on somebody, if it's creating negative sentiment, and it's like, as long as we can continue to make positive sentiment and give the right advice and create the right results and all those things, like, everything's going to be fine.
Right. Unhappy customers are really a blessing to you because they help you to make better choices and redesign what you've been doing and make better offerings. Even if you have to, as I said, fire a customer. If a customer is being unruly and difficult, there's times where I've told my team we just can't work with people that are screaming and illogical on the phone. We'll have to send them to another carrier.
Right.
But most of the time, I think customers just really are looking for someone to explain to them why they're in the situation they're in. I
think that leads you probably, it's a perfect segue into your latest venture.
Yeah, so Covercasa actually has been in my head since 2013, something that I've wanted to do. It's an online digital store where you can go and actually see the prices of different homeowners companies. And the reason I decided to do this or have this in my head is because for years I've been getting calls from friends and family asking me what type of home insurance they should get.
Sure.
They know I'm in that space. And so they'll call and say, I got, these 2 offers from an agency. Is this really the best deal? And 9 times out of 10, it's really not the best deal. It's just that that's what they were able to see from an agency. They offered them those 2 options. So over the years, having been in sales and marketing and vice president of marketing and president of a homeowners insurance company, what I've seen in my teams is they would go out to visit an agency who perhaps was a really great producer, and suddenly we've seen a stop of the flow of business. And so we need to go evaluate that and find out what's happening.
So what does that mean, stop a flow of business?
So maybe they're writing, 5 policies a day, and then suddenly we're only getting 1 a day.
Okay.
So where is the business going? What's happened? What's changed? And again, 9 times out of 10, when we would go in, the feedback we would get is, this company rep came in from another carrier, from a competitor, and they're trying to really drive business, and so they're offering me $25 for every policy I write for the next 60 days. And so that policy that we would have usually obtained is now being driven somewhere else and really is being purchased away from us, and they're capturing the business. It doesn't mean that it's the best policy for the customer or the best price. It just means it's working out for the agent.
Right.
And again, I'm not suggesting that all agencies do this or all agencies, have no concern for the customer, but this is an overarching theme.
Well, it's easy to fall into that trap when you're only purely managed by numbers. And then in insurance, it's literally a financial industry. So it is a numbers game and many times, right?
So yeah, absolutely. So when the owner comes to you and says, we're not meeting our goals, we need to drive more revenue, then that's a way to do it. Yeah. So I don't know if you've ever purchased a new car. I suspect you have. If anybody's purchased a new car, they've probably gone online and looked up MSRP and done a little research on what should I expect when I go into haggle for 3 hours on this new vehicle.
Right.
And you can't do that in the homeowners insurance space. There's not a shelf anywhere that gives you an idea of what you should be paying. You only get the transparency of what an agent is willing to show you. So Covercasa was set up so that you can go online, you can type in your address, you can answer a few questions. It takes less than 2 minutes, and you can see what your pricing options are from multiple carriers around the country. We're in 25 states right now. We'll be in 40 by the end of summer. And it's giving really what I would call just open transparency to the consumer. It's not to eliminate an agent. We have a full set of agents behind the scenes waiting to hear from you. But it gives you all of the research. So we're your research tool. If you'd like to go ahead and buy it without talking to an agent, you certainly can. But if you want to just chat with an agent for a few minutes, then we can help you buy your policy. And this time you come in armed with some pricing so that you know where you stand. An agent might...
And that's your slogan, right? See what's out there.
Yeah, see for yourself. Right. See what's available to you. So we just launched literally 6 weeks ago. It's going really well. We have about 20 carriers that are being integrated onto our platform. And we plan to end that probably between 30 and 40 carriers in 40 states. And we have some great plans for the company and to really help people in the middle of a global pandemic when 45% of people have been polled and said they're very concerned about their finances. They have financial stress. This is a great opportunity to help people when they get a renewal policy or they're buying a new home to find the best value for their home insurance because they have to buy it.
And insurance can be really confusing to people with you said like full comprehensive, there's premiums. It's like almost like these words, like
it has its own jargon.
It's almost like every one of those words you need to have like you need to define like what it means to a layperson, right? And
that's right.
There's always been that barrier for me as a consumer in understanding insurance and how to get the right value. But insurance truly is apples to apples in many ways, right? Like if you have certain coverage and the policy and the definitions, like the same exact policy from 2 different companies, could that be different or is it the same?
There generally are differences, actually. Okay. And that's why an agent is always useful because they can help you evaluate your options. You might get onto our platform and see that there's a premium that's $200 less a year. And if you want to understand why, it might not hurt to hop on the phone with an agent, talk to them for a few minutes and evaluate where you should really go with your business. Maybe if you have a pool, for example, some companies cover that automatically, or they have screen provisions to cover your pool screen. You might not need that if you don't have a pool. So that's just a basic example of how people need to understand what assets they're trying to protect.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of policies that can be very a la carte, where you just go in and pick and choose the coverage you need. So I'm not suggesting agents aren't valuable. I think they're very valuable.
I personally like having an agent because I don't want to be an insurance expert. I just want somebody to give me good advice.
Right, exactly. So that's what you have here. It's a hybrid approach where if you want an Amazon experience, that's what we've built. It's very simple.
Wow.
We have a full library to help you define, the terms, as you mentioned. We've written the entire website in plain English. So you don't need to understand insurance industry jargon, and I think that's very useful.
And is there any cost to getting these these prices?
No,
is it free?
Absolutely not.
So it seems like it's a no-brainer. Like everyone should start there.
Absolutely. Get their research done there, and you don't have to go searching the web on your own. It's a free tool. And then come to the agency. They can come to you as well. You just say, I'd like to talk to an agent. Someone, as long as it's not 2 a.m, someone will get a hold of you.
Yeah, that's the great thing about the internet.
2-minute turnaround time. Hours. That's right.
Yeah.
But it's going very well. And we're very excited about the funnel that we've built. It has an amazing completion rate. So that's been useful. And it's helping people.
That's really good. And I would imagine people are telling others about it.
That's right. Yes, we actually had a customer yesterday on the phone with one of our customer service reps saying, how many people can I send to you? This is incredible. I've never had an experience like this. So that was great to hear. He wanted to make sure that he was giving particular credit to the gentleman he was on the phone with, which doesn't matter, but we thought it was very sweet.
That's super cool. And this is something that seems like, I guess, as a consumer, we almost, isn't this something that's existed in the automobile market for a little while?
It has existed in auto. It's a bit easier to do in auto, right? So quite honestly, my 2013 head idea was a little premature because the data analytics in order to evaluate a home and price it, really, they weren't that available.
So it's much more complicated to do that with a home.
It is much more complicated, but not today, right? So today you can buy data. There's an enormous amount of data available for minimal pricing, and you really can evaluate the risk without having to bombard an insured or a customer with too many questions. That wouldn't have worked even 5 years ago the way that it works today.
And so when you put together that, sometimes data can be incredibly expensive. Obviously with your background in innovation or whatnot, how does one, I really want to get into some of the entrepreneurial lessons that you could share with us, but how do you approach a challenge like getting access to this unbelievably expensive data, but think about it in terms of scale?
So the data has come down in price dramatically. And, there's an entirely new genre of insurance companies, agencies, a whole ecosystem of folks called InsurTech.
Oh, wow.
So in the InsurTech space, there's a lot of new data analytics companies. And most of these companies have been born out of prior corporations that were possibly overcharging for the data. And these new entrepreneurs have come in and said, it's really not that expensive to provide this. We can do it faster, easier, cheaper. And that's who I'm working with, is some of these new providers.
That's great.
So that we can, make sure that we're helping the customer, but we're not a nonprofit organization. We can't do it for free. It doesn't charge the customer, but we have to be able to afford the data. So we've done a great job at finding those key players. There's a huge conference out in Las Vegas every year, not last year because of COVID,
right.
But there was an online platform for it. And about 10,000 people go to this conference. And that's where we meet a lot of our vendors and data providers, just always staying at the head of the game for what is new, what's available to us, and how can we do this quicker, faster, easier, and make sure the customer is having the best possible experience.
Well, let's get into that, because the relationship marketing is something I wanted to touch on in our conversation today, because it seems to me like you're probably one of the insurance industry's best at relationship marketing.
That's nice of you to say.
It seems like you know just about everybody.
I know a lot of people. I've been doing it 26 years, yeah. So relationship marketing, first of all, I don't really have anything to say about any other type of marketing, because relationship marketing is really all there is. A business just like anything else you do, involves service to others, understanding others. It's a relationship.
Sure.
And so, again, back to the core value, service above all else. Make sure you're serving your end user, who's your customer.
Right.
And that includes partnerships.
Partners, yeah.
Right. That includes the customer coming in to buy the policy. So just always treating people with the highest level of respect and being as helpful as possible. So I think what's been helpful to me, other than that core value, is anytime I see an opportunity to put two people together,
yeah,
I automatically do it. I've had people come to me over the years and they tell me, I'll make an introduction to ABC person or ABC company for you, but I want a commission. And they would want some type of fee to make an intro to me. I actually had a gentleman that was going to send an email to make an introduction, and he wanted to be paid if I ended up writing any business through that particular carrier. And I thought this was insane. I don't think you should monetize your relationships in that way. I don't think it's right. And I think when you put good people together and you help people out, that it always comes back to you.
Right. They'll want to keep you in their tribe.
That's exactly right. And I'm not doing it with this sort of ulterior motive. I'm always doing it with a clear vision of I want to help these people. But I end up getting called by these folks and getting introductions, and there's a constant networking going on behind the scenes. I don't even know I'm being talked about, and people are reaching out and wanting to make intros for me because they just want to, pay it forward.
Right, and they know that. Like, one of the things I love about, our entire business is built on referrals,
right.
and I'm super proud of that. And it seems like we figured out a way to scale through growing through referrals, and which is incredibly hard to do. And
I've referred business to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stephanie. I really appreciate it. But what I really try to do is when someone refers business to us, I try to take extra care of that person because it's a reward for them to refer business to us.
Sure.
You've made them look good by sending them here.
There's reputational risk, right? If
Absolutely.
you don't provide that level of service, that's exactly right. So that's really the key to it is relationships are really important. And if you want to have healthy relationships at home or at work, then you need to treat everything as if it's a service project and you're just there to help people.
Yeah.
And you really, I don't see how you can go wrong. Again, it's an authenticity issue, and people can't resist that. They love having authentic people involved in businesses that want to just help others. Now, I'm not going to say, again, we are a profit company. We're not filed to be a nonprofit company.
Sure.
But it always returns tenfold when you help other people
Seems
out.
like it always works out.
It does.
Your odds are way better.
Way better. And you can sleep at night, which is always helpful.
So speaking of advice, you've obviously had a corporate and enterprise career. You've had the startup career. So is there any advice you'd give to others who are feel like they're ready? Like, when is the right time to start your own business? Or is there any advice you would give to people who are about to embark on that?
So I started my own business too late. My first advice is the moment you start thinking you should own your own business, then you should go start your own business. I'm going to be 50 next year, and I should have done this probably 25 years ago.
Wow.
But I was scared, right? And I had the golden handcuffs. I was making just enough for it to be easy. There was a time, probably 10 years ago, where I almost did it, and I just got too scared because of some things that were going on in my personal life, and I decided to step back again and say it's not the right time. I don't know that there's a wrong time. If you've always wanted to work for yourself, if you have that vision, if you have an idea, you should bring it to life. And you can do it while you're working at a company. I don't understand people who say, well, I have a job, and so I can't do this.
Sure.
You only need so much sleep. I can live off 5 hours. So
That's right. There's 24 hours in a day.
There's a lot of
right?
time in the day. And
Yeah.
I know people that binge watch Netflix, and you can
Yeah.
use that time to hustle and set up another company, set up a side hustle, set up a new hustle, whatever you want to do. You don't need the rest. You'll be just fine, and you're not going to die if you don't see the next series on Netflix of your favorite show. It will be okay.
Yeah.
So I would say if you want financial freedom, that's my whole goal, not just to help people, but to have complete control of my life.
Sure.
So I go where I want, when I want, why I want. And I have financial freedom. I have the freedom to help my 4 children when they need help. I don't have to call and ask if I can take a day off work. I just take my work with me and get it done. That's always been kind of my end game, is I'm working
That's your
towards that.
definition of success?
That's my definition of success, is I need complete freedom to live my life. And so why sit in a corporation where you might have a small equity percentage or none at all? Maybe you have a nice fat 6-figure salary. That's nothing compared to equity and the value that you can create in your own organization.
Yeah.
And so when you start considering that you're making all these sacrifices for someone else to get wealthy, it doesn't make sense to continue to do it. If you do have entrepreneurial spirit, look, it's not for everybody,
Sure.
right? My children all say they don't want to be entrepreneurs. They think I work all the time, even though I'm available. My oldest daughter has just recently told me that she wants to work 8:30 to 5 and have an hour lunch. And my comment to her was, good luck with that. Let's see how that goes for you.
Yeah.
You know, I just think that can only last so far. She doesn't quite comprehend the lack of control over your own life that you have in that situation.
I was talking to somebody a few years ago, and they were like, they were working on operating systems for Microsoft. And he goes, no, it's actually quite simple. I just work a half day. So Microsoft gets 12 hours, and the other 12 I get to keep.
There you go.
So he's just working half days. Well, so you've talked a lot about the freedom and the independence of being an entrepreneur. As a leader, how do you take that thought process of knowing like what you're trying to achieve, and then also how do you compensate your team? Like, how do you build teams to where everyone working for you also feels like they're able to achieve the freedom?
So I hate to talk about relationship marketing again, but that's where we are. First of all, don't hire people who can't create their own to-do list.
Okay.
That's a real challenge, unless you want to babysit.
I'm going to write that. I'm going to create my own to-do list right now.
Yeah, create your own to-do list, Courts. Don't hire yourself unless you can create your own to-do list. If you can't make a to-do list for yourself, we can't work together, because I don't have time to hold hands and babysit people. So you need people that are self-driven and ambitious. They need to understand what you're doing and why, and have the ability to tell the story. So being able to repeat back to you why you're doing what you're doing and what the value of what you're doing brings to the table is really important.
Sure.
So they have to believe in it. They have to make their own to-do list. And then you just have to really love them. And I don't mean romantically. That's weird, and you could get in a lawsuit.
Yeah, that's not great.
Not the right way. But just really care about people and let them know. These are the... So my metrics are always performance, or not process-based, but results-based.
Okay.
So I look at results and explain results and say, this is what we're driving for, and as long as you're not doing anything illegal or immoral, I just need you to go get it.
And then go compensate based off results.
That's right. And so you just go make it happen. I'm not going to tell you how to do that. I mean, if I see someone floundering, I might step in and find out what their processes are to help them step up. But people really love the autonomy that they have when they work in an entrepreneurial environment.
Sure.
And they need to come in with that expectation that they're not at some, Big Four accounting firm. They're not going to go through a month-long training program.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. They're going to jump in head first and just start getting things done.
But they'll have the ability to create their own freedom at the same time.
That's right. They can create their own schedule. And I'll give you an example. Even in the corporate world, I worked for one of the largest Medicare set-aside companies in the country for a short stint. And they gave me complete autonomy over my sales force. I had 200 people working around the country for me. And on Fridays, I had a particular young lady that was managing a territory in California. And I had another territory rep call me to let me know she was getting pedicures at noon every Friday. She had the highest production in the entire company. She was out producing everyone by Wednesday, and Thursday was just gravy. And so I told this person when they phoned me up, great, I don't know why she's even working a half day on Friday. She's already outproduced everybody by Wednesday. We're lucky she worked Thursday. Go get it.
That's right.
Who really cares?
Right.
She was working 12-hour days,
right.
and she had designed her own schedule. So, I try not to beat people up on the way that they manage their day or the way that they manage their own business, because that's what I consider them as a business owner. I just appreciate getting results. And if you're not getting results, you're probably not someone that needs to be in an entrepreneurial environment, which is just fine. It's not for everyone, as I said.
It's really not. I mean, if you're not willing to really hustle,
That's right.
it you might be better off, more comfortable, in a more structured environment.
That's right. Some people need the structure. I've had friends that have wanted to start businesses, and my advice to them has been, you've always worked for this type of company. How would you start your day if you came in and there wasn't a task list prepared for you? What would you do? And how would you be, I think the key to being successful as an entrepreneur is just having complete perseverance. So you just never quit. You wake up the next day and you get back up and you go work at it again. So if you take failures really hard, you're going to have a real hard time starting a company, because the only way to have success is to fail over and over and over.
Right, and learn from it.
That's right. So if you have issues with failure, or you don't like, constructive criticism or negative feedback, I think you should stay at your cozy little 8:30 to 5 with my daughter.
That's good advice. So one more question. Do you have any mentors?
I'd like to have mentors that, live around the corner. Most of my mentors are people I've never met. I do have them. I'm a little odd. When I was in high school, I used to love to read Zig Ziglar.
Oh, yeah.
And Tony Robbins, and even Marianne Williamson for sort of a spiritual perspective. I would listen to the tapes, when we had audio cassettes in our cars.
Yeah.
I would drive to school, and I had, a 20-minute commute, and I would listen to my Tony Robbins series.
So that was the original podcast.
That was the original podcast.
Yeah.
It was very motivating.
Sure.
And I really appreciated the, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich is one of my favorites. I still read it every year just to refresh. Sarah Blakely is one of my current mentors. I follow her on social media. I think she's a cool cat, not just because she's a billionaire, which is also cool, but she's really worked hard and gone after what she wanted, from selling copy machines to hustling at night so she could set up Spanx. And there aren't a lot of females in the space that I can look to. So I would say she's one of the number one in my face every day that I really love. She's inspiring.
Well, I think just like her, you're like an icebreaker. Like there's not a lot of a path made for you. You're cutting through it, and I think your advice about your goal is to serve others. That's
right.
It makes it easy, right?
She's serving women all over the country too with her Spanx. I mean,
who
doesn't own a pair of Spanx? We love it. It's great.
Well, I haven't bought my pair yet.
Well, you should. You'd enjoy it.
I hear they're very cozy.
They'll keep everything flat on the stomach area. You'll like that.
That's good. Well, so if someone wants to follow you or follow what's going on with Covercasa, where would they do it?
So we have social media on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. We do not have a Twitter account, although I'm told I should get one. I thought Twitter was over. I guess it's having a resurge.
It has its needs.
Yeah. So Covercasa INS is where you would follow us under the company. You can follow me personally as well, Stephanie Lee. I believe it's Stephanetly72, but we can put that in your show notes.
Sure. That's great. Well, Stephanie, thank you again for coming in and talking with us. It's been a pleasure learning about what you're up to and all the exciting things that you're involved with, and really appreciate you coming in.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, don't forget to follow us on social media, and our podcast is found everywhere where podcasts are, as well as on all of our social media channels for the Law of Relevancy, as well as Bake More Pies. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.